Welcome to the Testing Peers podcast. Thank you for joining us again this week. Tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about leading upwards. Tonight we're going to be joined by Simon.
Hello.
Russell.
Hello.
David.
Hello.
And I'm Chris. Before we dive into some wonderful conversation, we'd like to say a special thanks to Ben of Saffron QA for their sponsorship. Saffron QA are a recruitment firm that offer a consultancy and recruitment firm exclusively for the QA market. They come highly recommended by us. Please check out their details in the show notes. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Chris. I thought I'd tonight try and look at finding out a bit more about ourselves and sharing stuff with people. Something that I've been looking at for a while is I've noticed there's certain apps I now use on my phone that have changed the way I do things, changed the way I do things in my day-to-day life. One particular example is I love listening to music. I listen to music all the time. I've always had my music on shuffle, my whole library. And then I downloaded the Last FM app, which scrabbles songs into an order. It tells me my most played artists all the way through. Now, when I won't play them on shuffle, I'll try and play albums or songs to move the artists up the lists. And it's changed the way I listen to music completely. I can't just listen to them on shuffle because in my head I'm thinking, well, that artist isn't high enough in the charts. I need to listen to more of them or whatever else. So it's completely changed the way I do that. I wonder if there's apps that you've got on your phones or that have changed the way you do things in your lives.
Does a poke contest with Chris count on Facebook?
How high is that poke contest up to now? In the thousands,
2,400.
Blimey. Who knew pokes were still a thing?
This is our second attempt at crossing the 2,000 mark. We've done a good job.
Yeah. I would say we got to 2,000 last time, and there was a bug, and it had to start again. So this is technically 4,000 plus pokes now. But yeah, it hasn't had much of an effect other than how I use Facebook is different to the way I was using it before.
Actually check Facebook.
I use Facebook to poke Chris. That is the only purpose I have for this app. But yeah, I think that's the main one for me.
Possibly because of the way lockdown has sort of led us, but I go onto my Photos app to look at memories this time last year, this time 4 years ago, this time 8 years ago, to look at those things and sort of reminisce. And before that sort of feature became kind of common, there was the time hop one, I think it used to be in Facebook. Those sorts of memories and things going back, I quite like it. And I think at the time we're in at the moment, even if there's good things coming, it still feels like there isn't an end. So it's nice to look back at positive things from the past. And a daily routine at the moment is I get up, I look at the headline newspapers, and then I look at happy memories. That's kind of my routine. And that didn't used to be a thing that I would do until the lockdown came along.
There is that thing now, though, that the memories will start showing this time last year, and we'll still have been in lockdown this time last year as well by the time.
But I don't take pictures of the morbidness of lockdown.
I say it's lockdown for life, isn't it?
We're taking loads of pictures of things we're doing.
Yeah, nice things, but not the morbidness.
Oh, okay. Fine.
For me, it's Strava. They used to do a leaderboard that added a competition with people, and there were work colleagues who would try and beat me at sprinting and stuff. And unfortunately, those Strava have taken that away from the free version, and so therefore it's no longer a thing. So therefore, it's not as competitive as it once was. So you can see your own position, but you can't compare it to others unless you pay for the paid version.
Unless you set up a group, though, because we've just set up a team on Strava, and we're doing a competition at work and in teams, and we're able to see how we rank within our team. We can't see the other teams, but we can see how we rank within the team.
I've got a feeling there's a PS team coming soon to a Strava board.
Yeah. We need to start doing something.
I do use my smartwatch a lot. Like I use that for exercise and steps and things, like you say. That's affected my life since I got one. In a good way, I'd like to think, although...
I would agree with that. Since I got my Apple Watch for my birthday, it's been the same. Most days I try and make sure I complete the rings.
Did we not mention that you need an Apple Watch in an earlier episode?
We did. And I followed through and got one. Yes.
I'm glad you followed through.
The power of the peers persuasion.
I think that highlights a good point in that, especially with the Apple Watch and the creating the circles, it's sort of gamifying it.
It does.
Absolutely.
It does.
Similar to what Strava was doing. It's that competitiveness. I'm going to try and beat my time. I'm going to beat something or other. It makes things fun, and exactly similar to
the music thing as well. Yeah,
your music.
Absolutely.
Highlighting you're not happy with what's happening, so therefore you'll gamify it and listen to more and realize more things. So it's, I think part of it is alleviating possibly our current boredom by trying to do exciting things. And our exciting things are filling up circles or listening to music.
Do you not remember being kids and everything was a game? Anything could be made into a game and all the rest of it. This is just us as adults doing it now. When
doing the same thing with
technology. Doing it with tech and apps. Yeah.
But sometimes you lose the ability to play as adults, I think, or you forget how to actually have fun because bills and taxes and life get in the way, don't they? Life gets in the way.
Did you see how they've been gaming the healthcare system in China? So there's health insurance that's informed by your step counter, your fitness tracking apps. And the more healthy you are being, the better your premium will be.
They have that here as well.
People are legitimately getting tools that would sit on their desk that will just rock their phone backwards and forwards. So they can game it to show that they're doing 15, 20,000 steps in a day.
One of the days of tying your pedometer to your cat and letting it run around all day with a pedometer.
I mean, I didn't do that, but that sounds amazing.
I never thought of that one.
I thought that was a nice little bit of banter to start us off. We're looking at leading upwards. And this topic came about because our good friend and peer follower, Beth Marshall, sent us a tweet when we reached out for some topics. And I'll quote what she said. "I'd like to learn more about upwards test leadership. Who do you report to and how do you help them? How can people who report to you assist in upwards management?" What are your thoughts, Piers?
To me, I've not had a leader who's been in the testing area for a long time. There've been some engineering directors and other things. From the testing side, managing upwards, I can do it more generically. And in that perspective, it's about trust, not throwing surprises at people, having open conversations with them, catching up with them when you need to be, being fluid and flexible because their calendars are usually mad and crazy, and learning a bit about them as individuals so that you know what mood they're in and other things like that, so that you know when's the best time to catch up with these people, when's the best time to drop a bombshell about the next project going a bit awry. You don't pick the worst times. People reporting into me perspective, I find it slightly different, but I will come back to that later and let you guys talk a bit more about upwards. You guys have done.
So I'm the same as you. I report to a group development director who looks after loads of groups. But also one of the key things is that I don't necessarily report to them, but it's the sort of PMs. So on the projects that we work on, I report to them and make sure that they have the resources that they need, that there are any problems with any of the group, they come to me. And so therefore it's always a two-way conversation. It certainly helps because both sides know what's coming on the horizon in terms of projects or resources or any particular problems. And therefore you've then got that support network to make sure that the communication is there and that therefore they know what's happening and whether any problems with resourcing and any problems with the actual testing can be alleviated as quickly as possible.
I've had times when I've had reported to test managers or head of QA, and I've had times when I've reported to development directors or CTOs, and I found for the most part they haven't been people who have been able to understand my context as well. And that's not a criticism of them, and that wasn't their jobs. It was my role to inform them of what I was doing. In most of those occasions, it was a very different relationship to how I would strive to be as a leader. And without wanting to go too far into that now, because obviously Russell sort of mentioned these things already, I kind of felt a little bit like I was an island I was accountable for stuff, but I didn't really have the freedom to make that stuff happen in the decision-making area above. The challenge was always the communication or the convincing people that this thing is better. And in that instance, it was quite a tricky game to play. I did start the testing peers by calling out to people because I felt I couldn't get that peer accountability with people and bounce ideas off people because often, even if they came from the sort of the craft of quality and testing, they'd been hands off for such a long time, their finger was no longer close to the pulse. And that's not a criticism. It was kind of a symptom of the organizations in which we existed.
Yeah, it's quite common within hierarchical systems. I think it happens quite often. Go on, Chris.
I think really the problem I had for a while was being able to confidently articulate my thoughts, because there's a feeling if you don't have that personal relationship with them, that you don't necessarily have those expectations well sort of set. And often, you might have information shielded from you about decisions or finances, people that are available, or even time-bound things that are in the horizon. Like you say, it's a two-way conversation. And without having those open and that information being present and that level of respect being felt both ways, because it's really quite easy to find yourself disrespecting your manager when you see them being hands off and you don't see them doing those things. I can remember joking about managers who had licenses for tools, but they never use them. And you're like, what a waste of time. They don't test. That's disrespectful. They're doing a hard job, but also it's tricky because understanding that context and having the time, like you said, David, the time with them to understand those things, it is really tricky. And I think the key is the relationship and the communication, upwards and downwards streams.
I would agree with that. I mean, yeah, I'm in my role now. It's the first time I'm not reporting to a head of QA or QA director or whatever else I've had in previous roles. And actually, the difference is the accountability for testing stops with me. Whereas before, I always felt there was that person that was still driving things and I was working for them or with them to help move it forward. Whereas now it is that feeling of, if I make a decision, there isn't much challenge that's going to happen other than the other peer test managers or whatever else within the organization. It's an interesting one, but it's, as you say, it does come down to communication. It does come down to having that channel open and having a good enough relationship with your manager or your boss that you can feed stuff to them. You can alert them when they need to action something. You can be proactive in talking to them rather than them having to come to you to get statuses or whatever else they want to get from you. And I think if you can have that two-way channel where the communication is free-flowing, that does make things a lot easier to help move things forward.
I think that what you said there is they don't have to come to you, but when they do come to you, you need to be receptive to them and available to them.
Yes.
They don't have to, but we should make ourselves available, because at the end of the day, they might not necessarily be our customers. It depends on what the hierarchy is or whatever, but we are giving them a service or we're helping them do something. So therefore we should be available. And if not, then we can delegate it to other people.
Yeah, I've certainly been in situations in the past where it's been a very micromanaged environment where you feel like they're coming to you all the time to ask for individual little bit of information and want to check on you for doing this, that, and the other. That doesn't enable you to be that person that can provide the information in the right way back to them, because you're feeling constantly on the back foot as if you're being pushed for something that you're doing anyway. They gave you a bit of freedom. You'd be proactive in telling them what they needed to know.
When I've had those micromanagers, what I've ended up doing often is just added them to half the meetings I'm in, just as like BCC sort of thing, or not BCC, CC'd them. It's kind of optional attendees. Well, most of the time they've just vanished because they see all that I'm in the meetings, they see that who I'm in the meetings with, and they don't care and they can't attend. Sometimes it's triggered further conversations about, actually, I know that person's in that meeting, therefore they'll answer any questions. They just pass the whole book to me. It's created a bit more of a problem, but usually it's helped focusing on figuring out why they need their information or what information they need. Is there a report they've got to fill in? I've often found that they've got to do a monthly update to the next level up or something like that. And they're doing these questions to fill in that report, but they haven't done that report for a long time, or they don't know what the project context is. And
yeah, it's
sometimes useful to know, well, who's the report for? Who's the audience? Right, Dave, right. He knows he's going to ask you these sorts of questions. Because often you might be having a relationship with the person the report's for more than your boss does. So it enables you to help facilitate and help get them the answers they need, rather than just what they think they need when they first approach.
I think the problem with micromanaging is that you always feel you have to give them an answer whenever they ask them something, or a different answer. And that can cause a lot of stress in ourselves.
Or you rail against it and you just flat out become the least helpful person going.
Or you do worse than that, and I'm guilty of doing this in the past, is you start getting frustrated and talking about it to other people, that how you're feeling is, and then you find out that other people are talking back to the boss, and then they get a different view of the actual situation, and it becomes a lot more messy than it needs to.
And also you can get a bad reputation for mouthing off.
For mouthing off, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not a very high trust environment that you're working at that particular point for any of those circular conversations. Has anyone had any experience with sort of dashboards and creating sort of high level overviews and information radiators, that style of information to give to the leaders or the things they care about? I've done it certainly with bugs, live production, quality sort of metrics, the feedback from the systems. And that's avoided lots of little conversations when something goes wrong. They check that sort of thing and see if it's common, if it's not common. They can kind of get more of a feeling for, should they be on our backs for bad quality, or should they just be, bugs happen, live with it.
The problem arises when different managers want different statistics.
I just say no.
And when their context changes, like they might have been cool about something for 6 to 12 months, but suddenly they're getting like pressure on some sort of KPI or metric, and all of a sudden they do care about that thing. And, you're quite used and comfortable to the way things have been, and you're not giving them what they need anymore. And it's that communication loop. And you have to ask sometimes, as testers, we're quite good at asking questions, but it's having the discipline to continue to check the context.
Yeah, so, just because it was right originally doesn't mean it's right tomorrow or in 6 months' time.
Yeah, you're right. And one thing I've done in that scenario before is I've worked with my boss to create the dashboard, as in, rather than me just going, this is what the information I think I need to present to you, this will give you the answers. I've worked with them to articulate exactly what information they need from me, built the dashboard with them effectively, almost like we're peer creating it. And then they're getting as much information from me and from the dashboard. They're able to articulate what I would be able to articulate. So therefore they can then talk to whoever they need to talk to about it at a high level. But I've also had experience where one of the better ones I had, he wasn't one for lots of status updates and lots of reports and whatever else. He would just have 2 times a week, we'd get on the phone and talk for half an hour or 40 minutes where we'd literally talk about everything that was going on, make sure everyone was happy. If there's anything I need to share with him, he would do it that way. But it was very much more about, if I make my people feel good, then things will get done. He would take whatever we did and do the grunt work of creating the reports and whatever else that needed to be said to management.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make sure that we were on the ground doing the work. There was no issues, no concerns. I, as the team manager, could push up to him if I needed to, but really he gave me full empowerment to do whatever I needed to do to get the team working. And that environment, I spoke to him every day because I felt easy enough talking to him. And that meant the channel was constantly open. If things needed to be raised, they were raised. Even if it was just over a coffee, where I'd be able to go and just chat. Oh, by the way, this has happened today. Oh yeah, fine. Okay, I'll deal with that. Rather than there being this panic that I need to talk to my boss because something's gone wrong, I had that constant reassurance that we'll just work through it together.
Sounds like a good boss, to be honest, because he's enabled that as well. It's a two-way,
absolutely
two-way street. I must admit, all my experiences with metrics and providing them upwards have been, I've decided a metric and I've told the person and explained why that's the only metric they're getting. And I've been lucky that I've got away with that for a long time. I don't think that's common.
I'm not sure I would have got away with that.
There's been a little bit give and take, but it's more or less I've said, no, we can't gather that. Or, no, do you really want us to spend hours putting this into a system in order to get you that metric at the end of it? And I've just done trend analysis and things like that. Keep it simple. Was one of the part of Beth's question, was that not about how can people assist us as well?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
One thing I was thinking about with that is how they can assist us is not sort of jump over us. I've worked with people before who, for any particular issue, they would blast all of management and supersede the manager. And that really creates tension, because not only have you got a disgruntled employee, but they've gone up higher. So you've got their boss then going, why am I being emailed about this sort of particular thing? So make sure that the issue that you've got is brought to the correct level of attention. Don't necessarily inflate it to a greater depth.
Don't start at the top and work down.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree to a point. I think it depends on the scenario, I think, though, because there may be good scenarios where you would almost encourage your person to take something higher with your backing. Not necessarily an issue, but if there's something good that's happened and it's reporting information upwards, sometimes it looks better on the team that you've allowed that person to take that upwards, if you get what I mean.
There's one thing that you said there is with your permission.
Yeah.
If this particular person I was thinking about just would do it irrespective, they wouldn't actually think about anyone else. They would just do it for the sake of it.
It is different in flat orgs, and I've not had much experience with them, but I've had relatively ones. And if it's understood it's a flat structure, I'm less perturbed by that. If it isn't a flat structure, then I'm sitting very firmly with David on that particular one, that there is nothing more annoying, in fact, than not having a chance to help. And then to get your boss coming down saying, why is this a problem? And you don't have a clue what they're on about.
Being kept in the loop, isn't it? That's all you need. Like as a bare minimum, just let me know what's going on. Yeah,
CC you into things, keep you in the loop of things. It's not to micromanage you, it's just to be aware of what's going on. There's something that's expected of his manager is that they're aware of what's going on, even if they're not the ones doing anything on it.
Yeah. I think there's an element of respect as well. In order to include people in the loop, there needs to be a mutual respect thing. If it's a continual problem, then that issue has to be addressed, really, to a certain extent.
So taking it in a slightly different direction, how do we encourage our teams to lead us in some respects? How do we make it so an accessible environment so we feel like they're doing what they can to manage us as much as we're managing them? I'll give you one example of someone in my team. One of my team at the moment, 2 minutes for any meeting where I'm meant to be on a meeting with her, she will ping me to check I'm still able to be at that meeting, which actually, although I've got it in my diary, it's that prompt that I need to be on that meeting. And I know it sounds sort of, I don't know, it's not, I should be better at being aware of what meetings I've got, but 20 meetings in 6 hours is enough for everyone. But it gives me that assurance that she needs me on that meeting, or I need to be on that meeting with her. So therefore, I'm going to be there. And that prioritizes things for me. It helps me know which one's important out of the 2 or 3 I've got at that time. It's just a little thing, but it makes a big difference to me being on those meetings.
I get how I can help you prioritize, I have to say. I worry slightly that if you're in 3 meetings simultaneously and you're only going to the one because someone pings you for it, that may not be the best way to prioritize meetings.
Agreed. And it's one example.
Don't worry.
Yes, I agree.
You're right. Getting feedback, though, like when you've got busy calendars, getting people to tell you why a meeting's important.
Yes.
I have a thing where if I get frustrated, but there's no agendas in meetings. Someone just sends me a meeting invite. I have no context to it whatsoever.
Everybody's nodding.
Yeah. I'm just less likely to go to it. So give the person giving you context of why it's important to you, some team member, or why you bring something to it. It can be quite useful to the team. I look to try and help them have space. I hate the expression. I want problems, and I would love some ideas for solutions. Not necessarily, it's not mandatory, but it's useful if people can come up with, I've tried this, or I haven't tried this. I thought maybe we could do this. I like people coming with those sort of things. As I said, it is not mandatory, but it shows that you've thought about the problem or even discarded some options with the problem, which I think helps. And I like to then coach the person by saying, well, what's the pros and cons of that idea? Well, have you thought about speaking to Dave over in that area there? He's done this before, actually. He might be a good sounding board. Connect people, connect dots.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's quite a tricky one. And I think in this remote world, picking up on some of the non-verbal cues are a lot tougher. So it can be the case, and I know this as a leader, sometimes people won't check in on you, just generally, like the things that you might just do if you just passed each other in the corridor or in the kitchen, those little serendipitous moments don't happen anymore. And sometimes you can't pick up on those things so easily. I can recall walking past a couple of people and they'll pull me over and go, look, we just had this conversation about this thing, and they're really annoyed. And you're like, oh, this is something I should know about. I can do something about it. And I might not pick up on that in a remote environment. And so actually the ways around those things, again, because I'm a bit of a broken record here, is communication. That's on us to encourage others to check in on us and for us to be available at all times within reason.
Yeah.
To be contactable, to be able to respond to them. If they know that when they reach out to me, I'm going to get back to them quickly and resolve those things or address them or make time to chat to them, that makes a big difference, because that is the trust and respect thing that we want from the people above us. If we're not modeling that ourselves, and especially in this remote time, like I've worked with people where they've said, you have to clear this with me beforehand, and the only way I can reach them is via whatever the messaging tool that we're using is, and I wait 6 hours in a day for them to respond to me.
Yeah, I've been there.
That's not cool. Like that's ruined my day because I've been waiting for things to get cleared.
It's not very agile.
We'll talk about agility another day, Russell. These things, it works both ways. Exactly. Like you've got to be available. And so if the people who are reporting to me are available, they need to know I'm available as well. And so I will try and check in on them. I want to build that relationship. It doesn't have to be like best buddies, but there has to be that bit where they feel comfortable to come to me with anything. It can be good ideas, it can be trouble, it can be things they're struggling with, it can be literally anything. And you should be that kind of person to rub a duck with or whatever.
It's that you sometimes have to show a little bit of vulnerability, and they'll then connect to you more if they see that you're human. My team, we've got a WhatsApp group, so it's off work, but it's a WhatsApp group that allows us to be, we're not best buddies by any means, but we're sharing stuff. We're talking about stuff that's not work related. We're trying to get a bit more understanding of what outside of work life is like as a team, individually, what we're doing in our own families and stuff. And it's helping build that rapport, which means they feel comfortable coming to me about anything. And that then plays both ways, because they then find out a bit more about me. And that means they then check in and ask how my kids are, or, oh, I see you've got puppies. How are the puppies doing?
How's the vet visit going?
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm constantly going to the vets again. It's just little things like that make a big difference. And that can help the upwards communication and downwards communication, because you feel comfortable talking to them. They feel comfortable talking to you. I've got similar relationships with my peers and my manager at the moment as well, where we're open conversations about anything and everything. And it just helps breed that there's no barriers here. We can talk about anything, and therefore information goes in the right direction it needs to go in.
Can I just pick up on what Chris said before about obviously availability of managers and things like that? Simon talked about his problem as a manager, where one problem where meetings are constant, 20 in a day is not uncommon. The more senior you get, it does seem that my job is to be in meetings. That is the majority of my job, it seems.
Yeah.
And it is a problem. In those cases, you cannot build systems where people aren't empowered. Because as Chris just pointed out there, if you're in meetings pretty much 9 till 12 and then 12:30 till 6 or something daft like that, you've got to have the team able to do work without you. That's what the meetings are there to get movement, other things. You've got to let people have the power to make choices. If you don't, you're setting your team up. And if you want to talk about upward leadership and downward leadership, it's kind of creating the opportunities for people to be empowered to do things. We haven't used empowered as much today, but you need to, and it needs to work both ways. You need to ask for it, you need to seek it, you need to push for it, you need to encourage it, and hopefully you get it. It won't always.
Going back to some of the points that other people have made just now, going back to Russell especially, talking to people who report to me, what I often do is make sure that, or ask them if they're passionate about something, or again, it's empowerment, is if they want a meeting with me, I suggest that they make it. So therefore it's them putting the effort in to actually to find out the time and make the time available for them. So therefore it isn't always on me telling them to do it and cheering them on. If they're empowered to actually do that, then it means something to them, and it tells me something about that. The other thing is that when people report to me about a particular, Russell was saying about a solution, often if I have to go upwards in the management chain, what I often ask for is, what is the problem we're trying to solve with this? So you identify the problem and then offer solutions to it, rather than just going, I thought of this great idea, we're going to solve the world and we're going to do this, that, the other. Make sure there is a problem, so that therefore there is buy-in by the management up above, so they can recognize it as a problem and therefore then invest in the solution.
Yeah.
That's probably a good time to call it quits. Now is time to say goodbye from Testing Peers. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Hope you've learned some insights and useful information from us. As always, if you do have questions yourselves, like Beth has today for us, feel free to contact us at Testing Peers. That's actually the email address. Or on Twitter, or Instagram, or Facebook, or LinkedIn. Pretty much we're Testing Peers wherever you may go. We are stalking the world of social media. And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, and have a great time, whatever you're doing next. Love from the Testing Peers.
For now, it's goodbye from the Testing Peers.
Goodbye.